Okay, welcome everybody. Sorry, we're getting ourselves together. I always realize that I start all the classes with saying sorry. I shouldn't say sorry. I think I know it. Okay, amazing. We're good. I just broke into her phone. You know, like every family has their own like 4-digit numbers. Like everybody has like their one. Do you have that? Like it's like your password for everything. It's for your alarm, for your phone. So every family has one of them. It's just funny. Like I thought, like growing up, like I'm not gonna say it out loud, but like my family's 4 digits was everything. And then like my husband's family's like, we have another one just like that. So right, he took on ours. Okay, so welcome everybody. Back from, okay, so this probably is going to be our last class before Pesach. So obviously I feel like we have to like, something that we're going to pull out of here. Like I really want to pull out something that's like Pesach-tic. Just because like, it's the Yom Tov that we're there. But if you're in Orlando, we'll continue. Anybody coming to Orlando? No? Yeah? Oh, you are? Where are you going to be? Oh, amazing. Okay, so, well, rain. Yay. I know. So everyone's like, are you going to do classes out there? I'm like, you know what? We'll do Chaburas there. Like totally. We did it last year with Paloma.
Oh, really?
We were doing the Bresta Book Club, so we did like 2, we were there for like 2 weeks, so like, it's nice to like learn over.
My first time going, so.
Oh, it's your first time? Oh, get ready. Oh, get ready. It's not Orlando, it's Orlando. Arlando, yeah. Because there's so much light there, it has to be, like if you get dinner going down there, so, okay, fine, so we'll do classes there, but just something a little bit Pesach-tic. And I really feel like just going into this month of Nisan, like I'm so excited because I feel like we say this at every single Yom Tov, like this one's my favorite, this one's my favorite. I wouldn't say like Pesach is my favorite, but Pesach just has the most like, it's very similar. It reminds me a little bit, I guess every Yom Tov has these like memories that you have, like Sukkot, you're like, oh, cozy vibes, like in the Sukkah, with, like warm soup and like certain foods, like, or certain seasons, like when you go outside and you're like, feels like Sukkot weather. Like, you know that last week of like camp when you're like waiting for the bus and you're like, oh my God, what am I gonna do with my kids for like 3 weeks after this? But like one day it's like a drop, like chilly, and you're like, oh, it's Sukkot weather. When you see the trees blooming, you're like, oh, it's like Pesach. But also because of the second Adar, I feel like we had more time to like experience it before actual Yom Tov. So like I feel like we should feel the same thing for us. Like we had a lot of time to prepare now because we're much later in the year. So like now as Pesach is coming in, it's very, very exciting. And one of the most incredible thoughts that I heard from Rabbi Yassi so far, there's been a lot of shiurim coming up, but one of them is that there's this concept that when the Yidden were in Mitzrayim, it says that night when they roasted the Karban Pesach, like I think it's a medrash that brings down that they were in Eretz Yisrael, in Yerushalayim, in the Beis HaMikdash, doing the Karban Pesach. And then like a minute later, they like kind of like transformed back into Mitzrayim, which is like, what does that mean? And like Rashi explains that like, oh, that maybe there was Kvitza Saderach, or maybe it's this idea that like something very much that we're learning from Tanya is that like if you think it enough, you're able to be in another place at the same time. And I forgot which Rebbe says it, but it's saying that like sometimes if you feel like you can't go forward, if you can't duck, let's say like an enemy's coming at you and you can't duck, what you should do is you should go a river, you should go over. And that concept of like going over, I was thinking about it that like obviously Pesach is like Passover. I'm always like, oh, when people say happy Passover, I'm like, hey, you don't know what's Pesach, like, you know, but Passover really is that if you can't get out, let's say the normal route of Galus, then you have to jump over. You just have to go over. And you could do that in your mind. And it's an easy thing that we practice a lot in our mind is like instead of going one way, you just jump over. And that's really what they did. When they were in Mitzrayim, they put their minds in Yerushalayim that like, oh, we're there and we're already out. And the fact that they did that, they were already, it was likened to them being in Eretz Yisrael, which is a very cool thing. Hi. No, we're so excited. More Rebecca's here. It's fine. So I just felt like to put things into perspective when it comes to Pesach, like it's something, and we learned this like the first time around, we learned that you're supposed to, oh my gosh, hi, how are you? This is so special. Wow, this is so nice. That we learned it so much in Tanya that the things that you think about are the things that actually happen. And especially like last week, what we were talking about, we'll review it a little bit with the Chachma, Bina, and Das, but that the Yidden in Mitzrayim, they just mentally put themselves there. They were actually there. Like that's how they got out of Galus. Like not by like fighting the Mitzrayim, but like going a river, like jumping over. And sometimes like you always, I mean, I feel like this. Anybody feel like they could just like transport themselves? Like for me, it's like you're in traffic and you're like, oh, I just want to be there already. I don't know how many hours it took you to get to the concert. I know we're not going to talk about it. The Shandy Plasker concert at 7:00 on a Tuesday night. Like how on earth are you supposed to be there at that time? But like sometimes if you just put yourself, you're like, okay, I'm past this scenario, or I already have the job that I want. I already have the thing that I want. I already have the child that I want. That is a very, very special tool that we can uncover every single year on Pesach. So it's like, it's woven into Tanya. Like he says in the Baal Tanya says, I think it's in like Parak 39, we said that B'chol davar dar chayav adam l'rasa atzmo ki'ilu shahu yatzam mitzrayim, and the Baal Tanya adds B'chol yom v'yom, that every single day you have to imagine yourself out of Mitzrayim. So it's not like, oh, I have to wait till the spring, till the flowers are blooming, till I'm going away to Orlando, wherever you're going. You don't have to wait for that. Every single day you can experience like a teeny taste of Pesach, and you should, because reminding yourself that, oh, thousands of years ago we got out of this Egypt, I can also get out of it. So I just wanted to start with just like this, just something about Pesach, because like it's really here. Whether you're making it or you're not making it or you're hosting, like it's an avodah. It really is. It's like on a physical way, on a spiritual way, and a financial way. It's like it's huge. And like what we're doing is like people are doing it for the first time. Like Sophia, you're also coming to Orlando, right? Yeah, we were just saying that we're gonna have classes down there. So like it's work, and like when you're doing it, put yourself in a place of like, remember, like just like we got out of Mitzrayim thousands of years ago, it was in the schus of the women. Guess what? Like we're in this galus now, and it's gonna be us. So think like as you're making your crepes and as you're making your food and everything. If you can infuse all of your thoughts of like, I want to pass over, I want to go a river, I want to go over. That's really everything that we've been learning. So I think it's special, like to think that just with the Levins and all. Like, I feel like we moved on so much, like in kosher, like Pesach candy, you know, like no. Now they have like pretzels, like there's no gum. Oh, it used to be like bazooka and like chocolate bars, like and macarons, not macarons, macaroons, like in the can. Ew. I can like smell it. It was so bad. I know, it's disgusting. I know it's not disgusting. It's like memories of Pesach, like, you know. Okay, fine. So we're going to start Parak Daled today. Okay, fine. We'll start Parak Daled. We'll chazer like just very quickly. Up until now, what have we been doing? Every parak we've been going into like Yechidus with the Rebbe, right? That was like our whole, that's something that we already know. Like, okay, I'm coming in every single week, have another question. Question number 1 is, what's wrong with me? Okay, you want clarity? Fine, you have twins. Question number 2 is, how did I get here, right? What am I comprised of? And then we went through the whole concept of the Nefesh HaBahamis, and we said it's from Sitra Achra, right? And it's composed of all these elements. Then what we did last week, Parak 3, was we started to understand the anatomy of the soul. That we said a soul is a very hard word to explain. We don't know what it is, but what do we know about a soul? And it comes from what? Hashem. And Hashem like unfolded himself. Hashem gave over these 10 spheros, right? And those 10 spheros is what is mirrored within our neshama. And those 10 spheros, by the way, can be divided into 2 categories. The mothers and the children, right? What's the other names for them? Mothers and children.
The head and the body.
The head, right, up here, and then the emotions, right? The intellect, the cognitive skills, and then all of your emotions down here. We also said that these could be the 3 mothers, and these could be the 7 days of the week, right? Did we say that? That like, that each day, the first day when Hashem created the world, it was like chesed. Hashem was like giving light. And then the second day of the world, Hashem separated, and that was Gevura. Then the third day of the world, the grass started to form. So you see Tiferes, you see harmony in separation. Then all the way down till the 7th day, which is Shabbos, which is Malchus. And then we also said that if you want to go deeper, the mothers can be broken down into what 3 things? It's not really, I mean, it's 3 mothers, but if you want to go more specific, it's a father, a mother, and then the Chachma Bina Das. So what's the Das? Is Das Hashem? Is Das a child? Is Das a faculty on its own? It's the relationship. It's the fusing. It's the intimacy. It's that intimate bond between the Chachma and the Bina. The Das then gives birth to the children. And we said that a lot of times, like kids who like live up here in this part of their head, they're like very intellectual, but they don't have the ability to bridge the intellect with their emotions. Kids suffer like that, and that's something that we try to teach them at a very young age. We try to expose them to emotions. And remember, we said, this was one thing that we said the first round, is that like expose kids to big abstract concepts when they're young. Because initially everything is very concrete, and then your emotions, as you develop them, you can connect your emotions to your intellect. So like little things, like I don't know, I take my baby, kiss the mezuzah. Like he doesn't know anything, but he knows that every time he sees a mezuzah, he's like he's touching it, like, and he wants to do it. He doesn't even know what he's doing, but it's something that you infuse in him. And then he wakes up in the morning, he's screaming in the crib. I'm like, what's he screaming about? He's like, Zaza. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll bring you there. And I'm like, what am I doing to this child? But it's kind of like this repetitive thing that it's part of it. Like, okay, like Negelwasser. I wasn't always so good with that, like with my kids. Like, okay, whatever. Ugh, you spill the water everywhere. Like, no, you're in your uniform. I don't want to get you wet now. Like, but no. Do it at that young age. Expose them to these things so they develop emotions to it. Like, oh, when I wake up in the morning, I know a routine. That's intellect. But then when you feel connected to it, what am I doing? And then you just tell them, like, oh, the Shema isn't here. Or even if they don't understand. Like, like for those of you who know, I talk about Menachem all the time. She's like, can we go to the aisle? Like, what? What does she have feelings with? It's the best cookies in the entire world. Like, she knows that. She comes and there's a snack machine and takes a credit card and it's a very cool machine. And like, she's not really davening. She's talking about like maybe she is. I shouldn't say that. She's writing letters. We practice OT. Like while she's writing a kittel, you expose them to this. It's that fusing. You develop an emotion to it. The things that you think about, the things that you develop an emotion about. So we also said that those feelings of your emotions are sometimes refers to it as the doubles. That when it comes to like relationships, you need two people. Intellect you could do on your own. You could be in your room and you could do your own thing and you could zone out. But somehow when it comes to the emotion, you have to be with other people. So it's a double. It's not just in singular. Okay, and that's like also the kids. And then we spoke about like for a little bit that like your head has to rule over your heart because otherwise it's the kids ruling the home. So we don't want the kids, we don't want our emotions to rule our brain. We want our brain to rule our emotions. Okay, then we said that in order for Chachma and Bina, Chachma is the idea, and Bina for it to develop and multiply and become something, it needs what? Which one fuses them together? It needs das. And das requires so much focus. Like so much. Like to the point where like you end up staring at a person, like just to get their attention. And it's because it's a real strong bond that includes like putting away your phone and doing all that other stuff. We were talking about it, but also in your own head. It doesn't only have to be with another person. In your own, in like with inside of you, remember this is your nefesh elokis and all it wants to do is think about Hashem. In your nefesh elokis, in your head, you can think things. You could do the whole chachma bina das, develop it into emotions in your head, in your body without seeing anybody. Right? And we spoke about alignment, like sitting straight, right? I fall across your feet, and now it's like, uncross your feet. So now I'm like laying in bed, and like I always cross my feet in bed. I'm like, oh, uncross it. Like I'm so scared. I'm like, I need it to flow. I need alignment. What?
Cross your feet in bed?
No, I didn't realize, like sometimes when I, like let's say when you imagine like a yoga meditative state, I thought you're like sitting with your legs crossed.
That's not alignment.
That's not alignment. No, that's just like meditating. But like putting your feet out, like I guess shavasana, right? Like just laying out. Then you feel this alignment. And why is alignment so important? Because alignment shows us where everything goes. The right side of your brain is chachma. The left side of your brain is your bina. The middle is that das that flows down. Your right hand is chesed. We ended off last class, we were saying how all these attributes are also the ushpizin. And also the Shiva Nevios. Chesed, Gevura, Hod, Yisod, Netzach. These are not just, like, and it takes you so much more. Like when we say they're emanations of Hashem, they're spheres of Hashem, you have to understand that this is in everything of this world. Hashem created everything, 7 continents, 7 days of the week, seven emotions. It's all part of it. Everything that emanates from the upper world into this physical world comes down to the number 7. So the number 7 is very important, and it's also within like your body, 3 up here, 7 down here. The 3 meals of Shabbos, the 7 days of the week. So you see these 2 categories, the intellect and the emotions are separate, but they're all from one place of Hashem, who he unfolded and gave himself these attributes. So now we know a lot about our insides. Okay, that's like all the inside of us. That's like inside of your cells. Now, what about the externals? Like, what about the outside? Does anybody remember from the first time of Tanya?
Yeah.
What? How does the soul interact in this world? What does Hashem... Clothes and food. Yes. Oh my gosh. Whoa, that's amazing. So Hashem says, okay, I'm like I have such nachas. Like, okay. Esty, how you doing? And we have like people on Zoom and you're like, your camera's on. So I feel like, okay. Hashem gave us clothing. Okay, so first of all, it's interesting because I think about the first thing that Hashem did for Adam and Chava after the sin was he gave them clothing, but this is different. This is soul clothing. This is called, in Hebrew, how do you say clothing in Hebrew? Levushim, right? A levush, clothing. So let's see, we'll read a drop inside and then we'll try to understand how does the soul interact? Because the soul is like this spiritual blob, right? It's just like, now we know what it's comprised of. Now we know it's like what it's built of, the biology of it, but how can it come out into this world? So I think the first example that I thought of the first time around, I think we did this together, was like paper dolls. You don't remember paper dolls?
Yeah.
Best toys like ever. Like this was before American Girl dolls. We had paper dolls, and like you would have like this little notebook, and you would cut them out. You know what I'm talking about? And then you would fold the sides, and then like the shoes, and you'd be like, oh my god, I lost the shoe, and you're like, where is it, right, Steenie? The shoe had like two little pieces that came over it. That's kind of how you want to see the soul interacting in this world. It has the anatomy of it is, let's say, the body, and then the clothing that Hashem gave us is ways of expression for us in this world. How we can use our soul in this world. Because this is a very physical world, and we are these spiritual beings. And this is specifically, by the way, the Nefesh Elokis. We're talking about the Nefesh Elokis, not the Nefesh Bahamas. We'll get to that in two more prakim, but this clothing that we're talking about tonight is specifically for your nefesh elokis. So you have a godly soul. Hashem's like, here, this is a chilak al kami mal mamish. This is literally a piece of meat. It's so holy. It has 10 spheres in it. Okay, now go use it in this world. Okay, how am I going to use it? I am see-through. I don't know where to go with it. So Hashem gives us these levushim, and there are 3 types of levushim, and we'll read it inside, and it'll come back to you. I feel like from the beginning of time, so everybody remembers it. Okay. Let me find the part with the nukudos. Okay. V'amido shehin yira v'ava. No, that's not where it starts. Sorry. Okay. So it says, V'od yesh l'nefesh elokis shlosha levushim. So every neshama that comes down to this world has 3 garments. Shehem, machshava, dibar, and maisa. Remember that? Thought, speech, and action, right? Thought, speech, and action. Oh, I'm so happy. Shal taryag mitzvahs Torah. So every thought, spoken word, or deed, mitzvah, devoted to the 613 mitzvahs of the Torah. Adam mekayim b'maseh kol mitzvos ma'asyos. Since when you observe these mitzvos, that's how you immerse every part of your intellect. Okay, so let's try to understand. Remember, there is 2 parts to your soul. There's the intellectual part, and then there's the emotional part. So there's clothing for your intellect, and then there's clothing for your emotions. I think about this like all the time, like OOTDs. Like Hashem was like, I know what you need. Like today, you know those days, like, okay, like you have after work, like you have like a PTA or like a dinner or whatever. So like you go to like dressed up already, and it's like, oh, because I'm getting dressed for this thing. So too, Hashem gave you different types of clothing for your intellect and for your emotions. The clothing that he gave us for our intellect, he says, is machshava. Okay? So what's machshava? Your thoughts. So Hashem says, I'm going to give you a paper doll outfit of machshava, of thought, and you are going to use that in order to shine your neshama into this world. Because your neshama is see-through. So I want to be in this world, right? Hashem wants to be in this world. How does he come into this world? He's a piece of us, a piece of him is in every single one of us, and we want to come out into this world. How do we do that? We have to get dressed. So our intellect is dressed with machshava. That means that everything that we think about should be seen with the lens of thinking about and learning with Hashem. Like learning about Hashem, talking about Hashem. So he says you immerse your thought in whatever you can grasp from Torah. So let's say it's pshat, which is literal, remez, drush, and sod. All the different types of Torah. Like, Chumash and like Rashi and the Malbim and the Zohar, right? And like the Maharal and Tanya. All of that stuff, if you immerse your brain in it, that is dressing your thoughts with Hashem. Okay, so anytime like you're learning, right? Like even actually just thinking it in your head, not speaking and not action yet. Just actually like processing thoughts of Hashem and like becoming like really good at it. Like being able to answer, like having a Dvar Torah for the Seder, like all of that stuff, just thinking about it is bringing your intellect into this world with the lens of Hashem. And then he continues, and he says, to be precise, the Chachma, Bina, and Das are fully engaged through the garment of thought in grasping the Torah that you study. So when you grasp a concept, like when you chop something, like Do you ever have this? Sometimes I have this, like when you're at like a shir or something, whatever, and you realize like the second like what the speaker's about to say, and you're like, oh, like you realize the connection. You see where she's going with the idea, and you're like, oh my god, I got that, and like you almost like sigh, like you relieve, or like you even smile to yourself. No, like when you grasp something, you're like, that's so cool. Like whoa, right?
Recognize it from before.
Oh, you recognize it from before you were born. I always loved that, like idea of like we really knew everything before, right?
I just learned about that last week.
What, that you knew it? You didn't know this, and the mouth touches you over
I
here?
didn't know that you recognized learning things from before.
That's very cool. That's very cool. Sometimes like you have those like little deja vu moments of like,
Also,
but like,
when you learn the same thing, like at the same time, like last week or 2 weeks ago.
oh right, when things are coming up and like
Same thing.
when the same concept keeps coming up, right?
Yeah.
It's very cool. Like when you and then you have this like little burst of like you smile. It feels good. You're that means that part of Hashem is being activated. That intellectual, that chachma, bina, and das of Hashem is coming out in you into this world. It's like a very cool feeling. Okay, so then we continue with more clothing. Hashem gives us more clothing. And he says the emotional powers of the soul, namely ava and yira, they become engaged through the garments of action and speech. So what's action and speech? Action is mitzvos, right? Like doing an action, like giving tzedakah, visiting the sick, right? All of those things. And then speech is through learning. It's like learning Torah, right? Like speaking it, davening, right? Using your speech for Hashem. So Hashem says, I want to come into this world. I need a filter. I need something, some way to get into this world. Fine, levushim. These levushim are going to address your intellect. They're going to address your emotions, and it's going to be through machshava, dibor, and maisa. So think about your emotions. Why is your intellect machshava, and why is your emotions speech and action?
So what drives it? Meaning, like, your intellect drives your thoughts,
Right.
and your emotions usually drive your actions and speech, generally.
Yeah.
When you connect to something, when you connect to someone.
Right. I think that it's like more like, you know, when you have like a noun and then like you have an action, or like a verb. Like in a way that the verb part of it is the emotions, right? Like you think about machshava of, let's say you learn about tzedakah, right? So like you're learning about the concept of it. And then you let that learn. There's always the crack of Snapple in every recording. I always hear it. Like it's so good. When you learn about it, right? So it intellectualizes here. Let's say you learn about the mitzvah of you're learning about. Let's say, okay, tzedakah is an easy example. You're learning about tzedakah, right? And then all of a sudden, what's going to happen after it simmers over here? Where does it go? It flows down through your emotions. And how does it come out in speech and action? It comes out by doing something, by sticking your hand in your pocket and then giving tzedakah, because it flowed from here to here. Now, that doesn't mean that you can give tzedakah without thinking about it, but think about the pattern that if it flows from thinking about it to actualizing it, and it starts off in your head and then comes out there, think about how much more you'll feel connected to it. Like, I think about this sometimes, like when somebody's like, the kids are collecting, and it's like, okay, every time I'm driving down any of these blocks, bake sale, highlight line, right, whatever. I'm like, okay, I have a quarter. I'm like, here, take all my quarters, and I'm going to get a ticket on Central Avenue, right? Okay, here, fine. They're like, take the lemonade. I'm like, I don't need it, right? And I drive away. That was an action that I did, but it didn't come from up here to flow down into here. So you can still, and by the way, Tanya always says that, like, bottom line, it's about action. So don't think that if you didn't intellectualize it, and you gave just by giving, that it doesn't count. Because bottom line, what counts is behavior. What counts is the action.
At the end of the day, everything has to start in your head. That's the command center. So whether you have kavana or not is a different thing.
Oh, right.
But you still
I feel
thought
like you
about
always
it.
thought about it at some point.
Whether
And that's why it's kind of like
whether it's
a,
conscious or unconscious.
it's like muscle memory almost.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah, but then maybe
You're,
the
like,
concept
driven
of doing
to
it
do
by
it.
rote or by like.
Right, there is a
thinking
parak on
and having
kavana, like much later
intention.
on.
It's a totally separate thing on kavana.
Right,
But
there's a whole separate thing on
thought
kavana.
is For me to think about picking this up, my brain had to try.
Had to think about it before.
Yeah.
Right, right.
It's a
So there are
precursor.
different, it is, it's definitely a precursor.
But you still have the deed.
Right. That's the idea. Like if you could do it,
Your
it'll
brain
happen
still
without
needs to
intention.
tell you to do it.
Right. Right. So it has. So ultimately, it does go from there. But your emotions, the way that you interact with your emotions in this world, is with your action and is with your speech. And your speech is the learning of Torah and davening, and your action is primarily mitzvahs. Okay. So you have a soul. How do I get into this world? Hashem gave me clothing, and He gave me like this beautiful, beautiful wardrobe. Okay. So I think that what you'll see is that in chapter 3 we were talking about who am I. And then chapter 4 is talking about what do I do? Like versus, so one is like about myself. Now I get to know myself. I contain 10 spheres inside of me. And then the outside is the self-expression of what do I do with it? So Parak Gimel was who am I? And Parak Daled is how do I interact in this world? So it's, for me, like it's always about intention, probably for a lot of us at this point. But if you understand the system of the clothing and the wardrobe that Hashem gave you, it helps you tap into your spheros. It helps you know where certain things are coming from, where certain feelings are coming from and certain thoughts are coming from. You're like, oh, always tie it back to your nefesh kiss. I think it's a very, very important thing to remember that we're walking around our entire day doing, lacking sometimes the attention just because like we're tired and we're not focused, and we spoke about Das tremendously last week. But now you have to remember that who are these clothing for? It's for my nefesh elokis. And the second you remember it's from your nefesh elokis, you're like, oh, I'm just trying to bring Hashem more into this world with everything, with my thoughts, my speech, my action. It's because this is how He gets seen in the world. You know how we always say like we have to bring more light to this world, spread light, spread love. How do you spread light? Let your neshama light up every single thing that you're doing with your levushim. So like I always take it to like, okay, let's go shopping now, like for clothing. Because if you start thinking about it in a very real way, clothing, garments are a gift. Happens to be like, my husband is involved in the clothing business, so I always think like, oh, he's making clothing. What do you mean? And Rich Hashem, like the Kohen Gadol is going to be wearing like an airsuit, you know? Like he's going to wear something that's comfortable. If you come to our shul, by the way, on Shabbos, it's like, you just be as comfortable as you want to be. It used to be like, happens to be, I shouldn't say this because I grew up in Brooklyn and we didn't have an Eruv, but like, do you remember this? Like in Brooklyn people, like you had to drop off your shoes like before Shabbos. Like there was no such thing as like walking in, like you couldn't walk in heels. You went like, and sneakers, God forbid you stay in shul. And in the beginning when I used to do that, I would come to shul and like carry like my little bag with my shoes because now we have an Eruv, and then it's like, you can stay in sneakers, right? Like it doesn't matter, but it's your levushim, it's how you dress, and everything that you put on your body is activating your insides. So you could take it levushim and you can say thought, speech, and action, but you could even take it like, I don't know, this is like something that I feel like you can internalize, that it's a mashal of clothing, but it's also, there's a concept of real clothing, and then the way that we dress is the way that we bring our neshama into this world. And I'm not like talking about like sneeze or whatever, but if you think about it, self-expression does come through the way that you dress and the way that you look. And like, when you dress the part, you feel right, you do whatever you have to do. I mean, I'm not saying that everyone, but like, I think it's important. Like we talk about Pesach, we're so busy with like buying like flanken and whatever and potatoes and making kugels. And it's like, no, you should get yourself clothing and you should feel that's a way for you to express your neshama. I think it goes like beyond just the like machshava dibur ma'isa. It's everything. Okay, so now he goes into, any questions so far on thought, speech, and action? No? Okay. I feel like it's hard for us like to take it like very practical, to make it very practical when we do it a little bit slower inside, because it becomes like more like of like a, not like a Chumash class, but like it's different. So if it's too slow, like somebody will tell me, like as we're going through, it's not as practical because also we're just learning the vocabulary words. We're learning about levushim. Like later on, we're going to realize how important your levushim are. Now we're just like learning the concepts of it. Okay. So then he starts to explain that when you divide up the mitzvos, right? How many mitzvos are there? 613, right? Of those 613, could you break it down into two categories? Aseh and los aseh. And how many? Ooh.
248.
248 Ramach, right? And then how many on the other side? What's 613 minus 248? Should I cheat?
3.
365. 365. A way that I used to remember it is that there's 365 days of the year, right? So then I was like, okay, if I never know it, I'll just do 613 minus 365, and it was the 248 that I always forgot. So like 365 was a little bit easier. Okay, so there's which one's asay and which one's los asay? Are there more asays or los asays? More los asays, right? So there's 365 los asays and 248 asays. Now, what the Baal Tanya explains is that you could break down, if we said that your machshavos is your intellect, and that's the clothing of, that your intellect is the clothing of machshava, then your emotions are the clothing of the mitzvos and Torah. Now, mitzvos can be broken down into these two categories, and so too can emotions be broken into two categories. What are the two main emotions that everything comes from? Ava and Yira. So just like Ava and Yira is divided, your emotions are in two categories, so too the mitzvos are in two categories. So now, we play a little like mix match. Which one goes to which? Which one is likened to which? Is the los asays connected to Ava or to Yira? Is the asays connected to Ava or Yira? Which one goes to which? Los asay is Yira, exactly. Why?
Because you're like you can't do it.
Right, you can't do it. When the los asay, what's an example of a los asay? It's boundaries, right? It's don't kill, don't steal, don't cheat, right? Don't, bear false witness. All those things that we're doing is because we are fearful of Hashem, but not like scared of him, like, in awe. Like, I respect you. You tell me I shouldn't do that, I'll stop doing that, right? Like my kids, you tell me to put the toilet seat down, I'll do that. But if you don't, I'm like, you don't respect me, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, when I get mad at my kids, when we talk about this all the time, like the laundry, the socks, in the leggings, in the underwear, in the uniform shirt, upside down, like hanging, not even like on the dryer, just like not the dryer, the laundry, like sitting there by the laundry basket with the cover on the floor. Why? You don't know the rules in this house. You don't know that you can't do this. You obviously don't respect me. Doesn't mean you don't hate me. Doesn't mean you hate me. Like, don't confuse, like, somebody who does an Avera as somebody who hates Hashem. And it's like, such an important thing because, like, okay, I'm very scared to say this, but I'm just going to say it. A lot of times we put up boundaries with people because we're like, she's a sinner, right? Like, you don't say that she's an actual sinner, but, like, I don't want my kids, like, to be with those kids because they do certain things because that's the kind of house they live in. Like, you automatically make names for people when you think that they dislike something or disassociate, and all it is that they just don't have the respect for Hashem or for other people. So don't confuse not respecting Hashem with hating Hashem. That, they're bad people. They're bad people because they don't do this. They don't have proper boundaries. That doesn't mean that they're bad people. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah? I'm like, V'hamevin Yavin. Like, no, I don't want to, like, because so many times we think, like, we put somebody in a category of, like, they're wrong, right? Or they're a gossip monger, or they're, like, a bad person, right? I love that word. I don't know why. Because, like, how do you say, like, someone who says Lashon Hara? Like, but a lot of times we confuse lack of respect with, let's say, hate. Or let's say, like, a spouse does something, and you're like, like, it irks you, right? And it's like, that doesn't mean that he hates me. He doesn't hate me because it irks me. Because it just means that he doesn't listen. I do this all the time. I'm like, for me, it's the opposite. Like, I'm always like, my husband's like, did you do this? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it. Yeah, I'm not doing it. Like, no, I'm not. And it's just, and then he's like, why didn't you do it? I'm like, because I did not think it was important, or like, I just wasn't on my radar, or I just didn't have time. And if I just didn't have time, it means I disrespected him. Like, you could think about it with your kids. It's a much easier example because, like, when your kids don't listen, you'd be like, you disrespect me. But, like, when you think about it in adult relationships, respect and awe, that's all what the 365 los asays are. Like, I was always like, what's this? Don't do this, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. And even the fact that there's more don'ts than do's, it bothers me a little bit. Sorry. Like, I just feel like that's not fair.
Could it just be a person's interpretation of their relationship to Hashem? Meaning, like...
Explain yourself.
I don't think it's their lack of respect, but more so their lack of understanding of the relationship with Hashem. Like, I don't think it's them intentionally going, like, I don't want to do this, I don't, like, this is not right. But more so, like
teenage.
I feel like it's very today's day to say, like, I don't connect in this way. Do you know what I mean
So
when they say that?
I
Like,
think that's very new age. Be like, that's
is
not
very
for
new.
me. That doesn't speak to me. But I think that in Yiddishkeit, like, the fact that there are 365 things that Hashem says don't do, He knows what's best for us, and by Him telling us what to stay away from and not to do, He knows on a much more previous level of why that's not good for us. Like, for us to think like, well, Hashem just, okay, I like a silly example, like, I don't know if there's like an actual like mitzvah of like don't eat before Kiddush. Like, I don't think it's like a real thing. But like for me, that's like one of the hardest things that I struggle with. I'm not sure why. It's just because like, I'm always like, we're Hasidish, like it doesn't matter, we can eat, and like we always eat, and like we don't fast, like I don't know. And it's like, but Hashem said not to. So like, I could say like, fine, I don't really care, like I'm hungry and like nobody sees, and like it's water. I mean, water I think you're allowed to have, but like it's fine. I'm also tasting it to see if it needs more salt, like, you know, then you end up eating like a whole plate of food. It's just like, if Hashem says no, then it's like, even if I don't understand, I have to respect it. And that's how you build a much healthier relationship. I don't think that idea of like, this doesn't speak to me is really...
no, I was
I
more
don't know,
saying
Mary
it from
help me,
like
like,
our
part
like
of it, like-
Yaakov like interpretation of our relationship to Hashem, then us
Yes.
growing up and like redefining it and now relearning. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like that's what I feel like a lot has been.
I
Because
think
a
that...
lot of it's been indoctrinating you through
Exactly.
a more
Yeah.
traumatic,
Exactly. So then
like,
when you're like
dogmatic
you like try to
way,
separate
so
yourself
you-
from that, and then you're like now let's say in this
Well, that-
situation here you're like relearning
You're trying
what
to relearn it,
that.
and that's relearning more
That's-
of a Geula mindset. as
Right.
opposed
Learning
to
los assays in a Google
having,
mindset. Right.
having a negative feeling. But
Right.
once our goal is to get to the point of doing it because Hashem wants us to, not because we feel it.
Right.
But you first have to feel that relationship before you get there. If you don't have the relationship and it's just black and white and this way you're supposed to do, this way it's supposed to do, if you don't do this, you go to hell, Hashem won't love you or whatever it is, that's not a relationship. First you have to have a relationship, and then once you're in the relationship, you want to do whatever you can to keep that relationship.
I thought Sarah was saying it like in regards to like the way you were saying about like when you separate yourself from other people. Like
Right.
when they're
Right.
Is that what you were referring to?
Oh,
I
no.
have no idea.
Okay, whatever.
Maybe. No, yeah.
No,
Right.
I thought you were saying like when you separate yourself from other people, and we're talking about the other people, saying like they don't have respect for Hashem's
Right, I
boundaries.
didn't think it
That
was
was
with
the
malice.
first-
Right,
Right.
right.
I think it's not with
So,
malice.
right.
Meaning
Right.
like
No,
She
Only-
wasn't okaying it. She was just saying her perspective on like when you say somebody doesn't respect something, it feels like they intentionally or like they thought about it and they're like, this isn't respect.
Right.
She was saying more like maybe it just that's not how they connect to Hashem and they are stronger maybe in a different area.
Right.
Maybe they
Bottom
That-
line,
that's the
don't
new
ever
age-
judge anybody.
That's
Right.
the new age
Yes.
idea of saying I connect in these ways, I don't connect in these ways. This is the way I connect to Hashem.
Like,
and
don't
I have
judge
a
me
good
because I
relationship.
Right.
with that
Right.
way.
No judge, right. Remember that
100%.
paragraph of like
And
no
you can
judging
never
anybody for
judge,
sin.
and you can never judge anyone else. But the goal is to get to that point, and some people need to take the roundabout because of whatever macro traumas that they've had in their life. However, whatever system you've gone through in your childhood, and the whole point at these times at least is to try to have a real relationship with Hashem so that we can live in more of that
Right, in that Gula mindset. Like also relearning mitzvos and understanding the pneumius of los assays is very deep. Like we maybe were raised a way of being like, all these things you can't do, it's so bad, oh my gosh, like Shabbos, like you can't do anything. But if you relearn it in a way of like, this is what we do on Shabbos, this is how we connect, right? Think about it, the 39 malachos are all part of the los assays, and that's the whole Shabbos. But somehow those los assays, that awe and respect of Hashem leads us to a very healthy relationship. But I feel bad because I started with those, I should move to the chesed side also. The 248 positive ones are all, the 248 positive mitzvos are all clothing for your chesed to come into this world. Right? Like what's examples of assays that shows your chesed? What? Tzedakah.
Respect your feelings.
Tefillah, respecting people, bikur cholim, all gomle chasadim, right? Like honoring your parents, keep it of an aim, right? Going there, honoring the Shabbos, all of those things that you go out of your way is your chesed emanating in this world. It's the coolest thing. It's like you can know as you're like doing mitzvos, like as you're like, going through your day and all the things you're doing, you're like, oh, I'm greeting people. I am making food for my family. I am visiting the sick. I'm doing all these things. And Mal Chesed 24/7. Like everybody's doing all these things. All that is your chesed coming into this world, and the clothing that you put on when you go to like, like all the kids, like it's the coolest thing. Like, Chasnei Lev, like the kids are like pumped to like wait online and get like a sweatshirt and like put on gloves and like pack all those boxes and put them into the Rebbeim's cars, and like it's the most exciting thing for them. Like my boys go and I'm just like, this is amazing. Like our kids and by the way, like when our community does all these things, I'm always like blown away by the people that arrange it. Like this is not my thing. Like in my next lifetime, I'm going to be like the Chesed Mami, or maybe even like tomorrow I can start doing that. But like, the ones who like, we're collecting boxes for soldiers in Eretz Yisrael, right? It's all of that is the clothing that you put on, and it brings Hashem into this world, and you can do it for your kids, you can do it for yourself all the time. It's all those positive mitzvahs that's bringing your emotion of love into this world. And then ultimately, together with the aseh and with the los aseh, that's like the perfect outfit. Like that's everything. You could wear it. It's all seasons, right? It fits everything. You could put that on and you bring Hashem into this world. That's how you dress and bring your neshama into this world. Okay, so now, I was talking a little bit about Yira. Okay, maybe I shouldn't get into. Oh, here we go. Okay, fine. So he actually, when he talks about Yira, and this is where maybe like we can go into this a drop more. Sorry, he was saying he was describing like a much deeper Yira than like I'm scared of Hashem, so I'm not gonna kill people. Like, because Hashem said don't kill people, and that's what scares me, so I'm not gonna do it. A deeper respect of not like, oh, I just like don't want to be marked absent. Like, I don't know, my kids are like traumatized. Like if you come into school and you're marked late, like for that, then you're marked absent the whole day. So we're not like just going to school because I'm scared of being marked absent. Like we're going to school because we actually want to learn. But the idea is that when we connect Hashem through the los asehs, we're showing Hashem that we're on his side. I think that's a very deep way of understanding respect. Like a spouse or a child, like even, you have to respect. Showing restraint. Like, Rabbi Kellerman always says this, like you shouldn't just walk into your kid's room. Even though like my kids now start locking the doors, I'm like, oh no, I need a key. No one's locking their doors. I'm like, it's a fire hazard. But respecting their respecting their space is a much deeper understanding of awe, and that like when I stop myself from being involved in the los asehs, and this is, remember, we want to bring our neshama more light into this world. When I stop that, it's showing that like I'm on Hashem's side. Because when you don't respect somebody, you're like, I don't really care. Like, I'll just do whatever I need to do. It's me and it's you. Think about Avodah Zarah. Like, what's Avodah Zarah? Why can't we do Avodah Zarah? Not because, like, when we were kids, it was like getchkas. Like, anybody say that? Like, I remember my neighbor had this, like, little baby Jesus at his house. I'm like, it's a getchka, it's Avodah Zarah. Right? What's Avodah Zarah? Avodah Zarah is, in essence, saying, like, there's Hashem, and then there's me, and I don't necessarily serve you. I don't serve you, I serve other gods. What's serving other gods? I don't really care what you say. I know you said I can't turn the light on Shabbos. I'll still turn the light on Shabbos. I know you said not to eat before Kiddush. Well, I tasted everything, right? Okay, I don't know. I'm just making fun of that example because it's a silly one. I know now everyone's going to be like, oh my gosh, I don't know. My mother and I had a full meal Friday night before my father came in.
I would say I once had a baby.
That's right.
Yeah, but
Baby nursing. I'm never
when they were
Right.
it's 2 hours, so it's either that or not that enough. So.
Right. Okay, fine. So let's like recap a second. So the emotion. Okay, so the emotion that gives rise to love is the right side, is your mitzvos aseh. The emotion that gives rise to yira is doing the los. The right side is aseh, the left side is los aseh. And then the cognitive part of your head is understanding Torah. So we have 3 levushim. Those 3 are thought, speech, and action. Thought is up here, machshava, that's developing it over here. And then going down is the emotions, and that's not necessarily secondary. Like you shouldn't think for 1 second that the emotions are less than your machshavos. In fact, what do we know from Tanya? Everything that you always think is that, like, you know how we said the first neshama, the second neshama? And we're like, oh, the second neshama is the nefesh elokis. No, the nefesh elokis should be first. But guess which one's higher? The nefesh habahamis is higher. So don't for 1 second think that your mitzvos are secondary to like understanding Torah. No. Doing mitzvos, even with that intention, like what Mary was saying, even with that intention is also bringing the light of Hashem into this world through your neshama. But if anything, sometimes it's even a little bit more. Because what does it say? And it brings down here about Tanya says that, like, if I heard this line, I can't find it now. It's in here. Like, Torah, what's the words? That, Kuchabrichu. Chadhu. Yeah. Torah, right? No, I feel like.
Torah, something.
Hold on.
Yeah,
We're almost there. We're like close, right? Oh, here. Doraisa ukuchabrichu kula chad. So we learn from the Zohar that the Torah and Hashem are totally one. So what does that mean? We said that what's Torah? Torah is your emotions, right? Developing it in your intellect over here is your machshava. So if Hashem is literally the Torah, then your emotions are just as high, if not even higher. Okay? So sometimes we think like, oh, I'm just doing it. I didn't like think about it too much. So now next time that you're just throwing a quarter to the next kid at the Chai Lifeline lemonade stand, even if you didn't really develop it so much, it's still also part of it because that is part of the action. Okay. Okay. Trying to think if we should stop here or if we should go like one more concept. What time is it? 9:27? Yeah? Okay, fine. So we'll do like one more concept in here. Basically, when Hashem gave us this clothing is a sign of Hashem's like, almost like tzimtzum. In order for Hashem to express himself in this world, we spoke about this concept. Hashem had to pull himself back, which was like tzimtzum, where he had to like hide himself a little bit in order for this world to be revealed. Now, when he pulled back with that tzimtzum, Hashem basically made space for infinity, which is Hashem, to be within the finite. It's like a very deep concept. You have to like say it a bunch of times. Like, yeah, when Hashem allows himself to emanate in this world, like through the nefesh elokis and through the garments of the clothing, Hashem basically, the idea of getting Hashem into this world, he made space for something that's infinity to be within the finite world. It's a very strange thing that here you can live in this world for, let's say, up to 120 years, but like in the next world you just like live forever. Like, did anybody ever not like lose sleep over that sometimes? Like, what happens? Like, are they alive forever? Do they stay young? Like, what do they look like, right? I always like think about it. Those are like concepts of like infinity, right? Like, we have no idea what that means, like to be forever. The light that was, the light that is, it will always be, right? Like, what is infinity? How do we wrap our minds around it? But what
more like tzimtzum
it's not like the tzimtzum like that we described, right? It's not like real like restricting of it. It was like it's almost like a funnel, right? Of like how Hashem could like get into this world. Is that what it is? No?
I don't really.
Okay, so basically what he's saying, in order for it's like the expression, the thought, speech, and action, the levushim are actually like, it's almost like it's the mechanics of turning on the light of Hashem in this world, of bringing infinity into this world through our thought, speech, and action. It's the allowance of Hashem into this world. So your soul is beaming and it's beautiful and it's inside and it's who you are. But in order for you to express yourself, you need to wrap yourself in these garments. These garments have to be like on your, like, you know, you have like those 5 dresses like you just always put on or wear. I have like 5 of the same like beige sweatshirts. Everyone's like, do you change your clothing? I'm like, yeah, I just have a different one for every day of the week, right? That's how you have to imagine of Hashem coming into this world, that Hashem is like, it's infinity seeping into this world through your thought, speech, and action. And it helps elevate your thought, speech, and action by thinking about that. By wrapping your mind around that.
Like the importance of it?
Yeah.
Like we should think about and do things with intention because we have a responsibility.
Because basically our body is a machine. Yeah, our body is a machine to bring Hashem into this world. Like our body is the perfect, like I say like figurine, like almost like a doll, right? That like could allow Hashem to come into this world. Like Rashiv's Taub, like give this example, like do gloves have 10 fingers on it, to have 5 fingers on it for your hands, or did your hands, like what came first? Like the glove that's 5 hands or your hand that's 5 hands? Like I think about that, right? You know that mashal that he gives? And it's because the way that Hashem put us into this world, like why do we have 10 fingers? Oh, because it has to connect with the 10 spheros, right? Like it has to. So like, I don't know exactly how, but like your body is that vehicle to bring infinity into this world. The way that you were created, your body is like, we say like your body is like a temple, right? Your body is the Shekhinah. Think about it. After, what happened immediately after Har Sinai? Like after, let's say like Shibud Mitzrayim, after we got out of Mitzrayim and we came to get the Torah, Hashem then was able to rest in us, inside of us, that it physically manifested as, what's the parak right after? Like, what did we do after we got out, after Har Sinai? What did we build? A Mishkan, right? V'shachanti b'socham. Hashem's like, oh, now I gave you the Torah, now I can rest in, now I know how to get into this world. How do I get into this world? Through your thoughts, speech, and action. Oh, okay, here's the Torah, 613 commandments, connect to me, learn it with me, and then all of a sudden, what happened right after that was like, Vasuli mikdash v'shachanti b'socham. Like, I am going to rest now in your body, but also in your Mishkan, and then eventually in the Beis HaMikdash, and also in every single house, because every single house is Beis HaMikdash. So you have to view the Levushim as a vehicle to bring Hashem into this world, and know that every single part of your body is designed for certain things. Like, it's just, it's cool. I don't know what all them are, but like...
No, really, Hashem's here, right?
Right.
So it's all those thoughts, speech, and actions are opportunities to reveal Him,
Right.
in like a more tangible way, almost.
In a more tangible way, right? Like
more
to bring...
physical way.
Right.
Dear B'dachtonim.
Dir b'tachtonim. Right, dir b'tachtonim. That's ultimately what it comes down to. Right. Okay. We're going to end here. There's still more to Perek Dal. We didn't finish, but we'll do some questions or thoughts or... Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Hashem. It's 9:30. It's half on time. Okay. Thank you all for joining. If you want to stay on the Zoom for questions, if anybody has any questions, you could say, or you can go.